Oh. Narayan. Satchidanandarupaya Vishwotpattyadihetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Janmadhyasya yatonvayaditaratascharteshvabhignaswarat Tene brahmahridaya adikavaye muhyanti yatsurayah Tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha Dhamna svena sada nirasta kuhakam satyam param dhimahi Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam Vedyam vastavamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Kim va parerishvaraha Sadyo hridyavarudhyate trakritibi shushrushubhistatchanat. Hari Om and greetings from Niagara Falls. What is the difference between Vayo Vridha and Jnana Vridha? Vayo Vridha is unconscious. It is when the body matures. Jnana Vridha is conscious. And it is when the mind matures. So Vayo Vridha is getting older. And Jnana Vridha is getting wiser. How does one become Jnana Vridha? How does one become wiser? It's about Vidya and Avidya. Vidya, we always interpret as remembering. Here I'm going to share Vidya is forgetting. To forget what is not important makes one wise. Yes? To forget others' faults makes one wise. If I keep remembering what's unimportant and others' faults, that shows that I'm ignorant. Now here I'm going to interpret avidya as remembering. One who is suffering from avidya knows why they're suffering. And since they know why they're suffering, they keep making excuses. They keep making excuses. Remember when Dharma was being beaten by Kali. The bull was being beaten by that selfish icon. And Raja Parikshita asks that bull, "Why are you sad? Is this man making you sad?" And that bull laughed and said, "It is laughable to think that anyone can make you sad or anyone can make you happy." Our course is for us to match Vayo Vridha with Jnana Vridha. We're all going to get old, irrespective of whether we're part of this course or not. But Jnana Vridha is when we don't make excuses for the sadness in our life. We don't remember other people's faults. We focus on what's important. This course is to open our eyes to reality. When someone insults me, I can get so lost in my own mind that I lose track of reality. I lose track of that person. To open our eyes, and in the language of Swami Vivekananda, he says the study of Advaita Vedanta is de-hypnotizing oneself. De-hypnotizing. To think that we're all separate is hypnosis. To think that we're all one is that de-hypnosis. In our culture, whenever you leave, suppose you come to Niagara Falls, and then you have to leave to go back to Iowa City or to Fairfield. In our culture, we're not supposed to cry when we leave. So whenever you leave, people you care for, you visit Bharat, try not to cry. Because that tends to be the last memory, isn't it? That crying. That's why we always offer mithai. We want that last memory to be a sweet one. Now I'll extrapolate this. If you invest in stocks, if you're a financial planner, you analyze so many figures. The cash flow, the amortization. But the final figure you look at is profit or loss, isn't it? Is that number in black or is that number in red? So all is important, but the most important is that last figure. For us, what's most important is our last breath. Let's expand this to life. Our last breath will be most important because our last breath will direct our next breath. And this is what Rishi Shuka tells Raja Parikshita. What a dying person, what anyone should be doing is remembering Bhagwan, remembering their nature. And there's many, many, many examples that we'll come across in Srimad Bhagavatam. One, I'll reference. His name is Khatvanga Raja. That's an interesting name, no? Khatvanga. He helps the Devas to defeat the Rakshasas. And the Devas are so happy. So they say, ask anything you want. So what this Raja asks is, please tell me how much time I have to live. And the Devas are really hesitant to answer that question, but he presses them. Tell me how long I have to live. And how long does he have? 1 hour. Raja Parikshita had 168. Khatvanga Raja was given 1 hour. And he smiled, left heaven, right? The fight is going on in Swarga, came to earth, maybe Canada. And he engaged in remembering God and remembering infinity. And he was freed in that 1 hour. Now some may think, how come he left heaven? Because in heaven, all people do is engage in pleasure. Peace is not made a priority. And he said, this is my last hour. I have to make peace a priority. Rishi Shuka specifically tells Raja Parikshita that you need to contemplate. The highest contemplation is contemplate on Swarupa. In other words, contemplate on infinity inside of you. We call that the truth, Sat, Chit, Ananda. If you can't do that, then contemplate on Vishwarupa. Contemplate on infinity outside of you. As the clouds, as the mountains, as people. And if you can't do that, contemplate on your Ishta Rupa, which is infinity in a specific form, like Bhagwan Krishna or Mother Saraswati. But the point is to contemplate. In the first skanda, in the 3rd chapter, we had listed out the 24 avatars that becomes the spine for Srimad Bhagavatam. And thus far we have covered 0, 1, 2, and 3. 0 was Bhagwan Narayana. 1 was Bhagwan Brahma. 2 is the Sanata Kumaras. And 3 we just covered, Bhagwan Varaha. Bhagwan Varaha. And now reviewing what we had explored about Bhagwan Varaha, and then we'll start new content. Bhagwan Varaha is not interested in profit, he's interested in peace. Hiranyaksha is not interested in peace, he's interested in profit. And that's why they have a very different relationship with the earth. Hiranyaksha, how can I use the earth? Bhagwan Varaha, how can I be used for the earth? So now put yourself in that position. Has the earth been created for you? Or have you been created for the earth? And if that's too environmental, has your mother been created for you? Or have you been created for your mother? Think. We continue. We're on the 3rd skanda. I'm now on chapter 15. And I'm reading Shloka 43, lines 1 and 2. Krita shokanutapena sadyah pratyavamarsanat bhagavat yurumanacha bhave mayapi chadarat. Here, Rishi Kashyapa is talking to his wife, Diti. Okay? And he says, the sorrow you're experiencing is not directly because of your actions. And because you know this, because you know what I'm teaching you, I will help you. So now how did we jump to Rishi Kashyapa and Diti? So let's rewind. After Bhagwan Varaha lifted Mother Earth and restored her to solid ground, what happened to Bhagwan Varaha? He disappeared. Just like that, Bhagwan Varaha was gone. So, Rishi Vidura asks Rishi Maitreya more about this. Who is this Hiranyaksha? How come this all happened? So Rishi Maitreya starts to answer. And there's a lot of connection here to Ramayana. One of Bhagwan Brahma's sons, his name was Daksha. You remember Daksha from Ramayana? Daksha Prajapati. His purpose was to create. And his daughter is Sati. Devi Sati, who then became Mother Parvati. So Devi Sati. Daksha Prajapati also had another daughter, and her name was Diti. D-I-T-I. And she was married to Rishi Kashyapa. Rishi Kashyapa. So try to keep track of all of this because these personalities will come again. Rishi Kashyapa was a most sattvic personality. And in the evening time, in Sanatana Dharma, during sandhyas, when there's a change in the environment, in this case from dusk is happening, right? From light to dark, one always engages in more discipline. So he's practicing his disciplines. He's doing japa, he's engaged in dhyana, and Diti is feeling very lusty. And she goes to Rishi Kashyapa and explains in a very open way that I'm feeling very lusty and you're supposed to be a creator, so fulfill my wish. And Rishi Kashyapa in a very calm manner explains that right now I have to engage in my disciplines, and as soon as I've completed these disciplines, then I will fulfill your wish. I will quell your lust. And in her lust, she forgets all disciplines and all shame, and she actually takes off his upper cloth, takes that cloth off of him. And remember, this is a communal living area. So he's engaged in these disciplines with so many other people also, especially being a rishi. And so Rishi Kashyapa submitted to Diti's lust. And after that, he went back to his disciplines. And Diti realized how overcome she was by that lust. And she went and had this dialogue with Rishi Kashyapa, saying, I lost track of myself. I feel ashamed. And Rishi Kashyapa is now saying that, I'm glad that you know all of this, but there are reactions for every action. There's consequences for all causes. And he says, you will give birth to two beings, and they will be the most terrible beings. Who did they become? Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. And he says, however, you know what you did was wrong, so certainly you will give birth to two terrible beings, but you will be the grandmother of one of the greatest beings. Diti becomes the grandmother for Prahlad. So this is where we'll pause, and I'll share some of the Vedantic insights into all of this. Why does Bhagwan Varaha disappear? How come he doesn't stay and entertain everyone and teach everyone? Earlier I had mentioned that Bhagwan Varaha is described as being the father, and he's looking after the mother, that is Mother Earth. Bhagwan Varaha disappears because he's trying to teach the people to be independent, to not even depend on his particular name and form. And now most of the people in our course are parents. Ask yourself, are you teaching your kids to be independent? All of us are kids to someone else. Are we living in an independent way? That disappearing is indicative of this. And a specific word or phrase that's used is Swadrick. Drik means to see, and swa means oneself. Swadrick means the one who sees oneself. In other words, one who depends on oneself. That is a lovely way to live, is to depend on oneself. Then one never complains. One never criticizes then. One works harder and smarter. Swadrick. In a very practical way, how do we become Swadrick? We have to change worrying into learning. We worry so much about our businesses, about our centers, about our kids, about our parents. Instead of worrying about all of this, try to learn that you are partly responsible for the center's welfare, for your parents' welfare, but there's someone who's more responsible. That's the Creator. In this learning, we become so much more cheerful. And I've shared with you so many times, please try to internalize this. If you say God is infinite, that means God is all present. He's present in every city. He's present on this stage also. And since God is all present, God is always looking at you. Whether you know it or not, God is looking at you outside and inside. And if God, whom we're describing as the Father, as the Mother, is looking at you, that means God is looking after you. Please make that connection. If looking at you, that means looking after you, there is no reason to worry. How free we would feel if we just deleted worry from our thinking. Now let's fast forward to Diti and Rishi Kashyapa. Our scriptures are like a constitution and they're very detail-oriented. a marriage, sexuality, is not for enjoyment, rather is for creation. And that's why when one engages in sexual activities, there is, and I'm saying this very clearly, there is a mind set, there is a time set, and there's a people set. Got those? Mindset, time set, people set. When one engages in sexuality, one's mind should be quiet, should be creation-oriented, time set. There's a specific period of the periods of the day where the environment is conducive to this too. The environment is supporting this, no different than when should you engage in dhyana? Not 9 p.m., not even 9 a.m., but 6 a.m., 3 a.m. And people set also. In this case, Rishi Kashyap's with so many people, correct? Rishi Kashyap's not in that sentiment. So that has to be regulated also. When sexuality is practiced in such a disciplined way, then that whole experience and the creation that comes with that experience is sattvic then. Many times people ask me, what does Sanatana Dharma say about abortion? And I'll leave that matter alone. One statement or thought here, though, is abortion should not be used as birth control. Should not be used as birth control. That is not right for anybody, whether it's the mother, the father, the fetus. And I feel that if people had these sets checked off, then one wouldn't need to use abortion as birth control. There would be more sattva there. When Rishi Kashyapa does fulfill Diti's lust, remember I said he goes back to engaging in his discipline. He never feels that he's dirty or that he's a sinner. He rebalances himself. And I think that's such a dynamic way of how one should be in any relationship, specifically a husband and wife, that if one partner is of this sentiment and you're of this sentiment, to please that person, you engage in that, but then you go back to what you feel is dharmic, what you feel is right. And in Diti's case, she does repent. She does know what she did is wrong, and that shows her greatness. When Rishi Kashyapa says you will give birth to 2 terrible beings, he says that these terrible beings will die at the hands of Bhagwan. And she's so happy about that because she says if they were cursed by whom they're affecting, the Brahmanas, they will never be saved. But Bhagwan is most gracious. And if they die at the hands of Bhagwan, that's their good fortune. That's their mukti. So lots to think about in one line, no? And now I have to cover in 4 minutes, way more. So here we now meet Jaya and Vijaya. And this is a very lovely, popular portion of Bhagavatam. I'm still in the 3rd skanda, of course. Now I'm moving to chapter 16, and I'm on the 31st shloka. I'm reading lines 1 and 2. Mai samrambhayogena nistirya brahmahelanam pratyeshatam nikasham me kalena alpayisa punaha. So here what's being shared is Jaya and Vijaya are being told that through your conflict with me, through your animosity with me being Bhagwan Narayana, this will actually be your communion with me. You will come back to me quickly. So now again, we fast forwarded a lot, so what happened in between all of this? In Diti's womb, there was a lot of darkness. Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu are going to be born, and that darkness from her womb was spreading. Just like stress, right? If you're feeling very stressed or you're around someone who's stressed, they start to make you feel stressed then. So that darkness is spreading. And there's a nice meaning to this word diti. Diti means to break. And so the children of Diti are known as Daityas. And the Daityas are known as Asuras, those who spread darkness. And Diti's sister's name is Aditi. Aditi. And her children essentially known as Aditya. And they're known as Suras. Suras are those who create light. So what a cool balance of black and white, yin and yang. So this darkness is spreading, and the Suras, they know that this darkness is coming from Diti's womb. And so they go to Bhagwan Brahma and say, please help us. We know what's coming, and we will not be able to stand the ferocity of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, keeping in mind how powerful their father is, their mother is. They're going to be more powerful. So Bhagwan Brahma smiles and says, remember your eldest siblings. Who are they? The Sanata Kumaras. Remember the Sanata Kumaras were supposed to engage in creation, but what did they do? They weren't interested in creation. They just wanted to study and share. Your eldest siblings, he's talking to all of the Devas, the Suras, they're going to help you. How? So here's what happens. Bhagwan Narayana is in Vaikuntha. And in Vaikuntha, there is total peace. In fact, in Vaikuntha, everyone looks like Bhagwan Narayana. There's so much peace. And the Sanata Kumaras, those are the four brothers, though they're enlightened, though they're the most ancient, they all look like 5-year-old boys. And these 5-year-old boys, they don't wear clothes. They're just that pure, that innocent. And they want to go see Bhagwan Narayana, right? Whatever they feel inside, they want to see it outside sometimes. So they go to Vaikuntha and they're passing through this gate and this gate and this gate. And then they get to I think it's the 7th gate. And Bhagwan Narayana and Mother Lakshmi are inside. And Jaya and Vijaya, they're guarding Bhagwan Narayana and Mother Lakshmi. And they say, you can't go. They actually put down their maces and they start to verbally abuse these Sanata Kumaras, saying, you're all talk, but you actually don't live up to that enlightenment. And at that time then, the Sanata Kumaras, their temper increases and they share with Jaya and Vijaya. And there's such a beautiful section of Bhagavatam that you should all read on by yourselves. It's in chapter 15, shlokas 32 to 36. Chapter 15, shlokas 32 to 36, where the Sanata Kumaras, they curse Jaya and Vijaya, these guards, that you don't belong in Vaikuntha. You don't belong to follow these responsibilities. You're acting like asuras, may you become asuras. And immediately, when that curse is given, it's like a revelation opens up. The Sanata Kumaras realized that they made a mistake. That if these two are insulting them, they don't deserve to be cursed. And Jaya and Vijaya immediately realized their mistake too, that they were given this responsibility, but they're not following that responsibility. And so there's this commotion. The Sanata Kumaras, Jaya Vijaya, there's all of this thunder, right? This curse has been given. Bhagwan Narayana comes. And when Bhagwan Narayana comes, he comes so quickly and he's assessing everything that has happened. And with him comes Sri Devi, Mother Lakshmi. So this is the Katha. I'll share some of the Vedanta. And before I do, There's a really lovely part also in chapter 15 where they describe Vaikunta and Mother Lakshmi. She's washing her face in the river. And when she washes her face, she happens to catch her own reflection and she realizes how beautiful she is. And she thinks about this some more and she goes, why I'm so beautiful is because Bhagwan Narayana has kissed me. It's his kiss that has made me so beautiful. There's so much in Bhagavatam. Such lovely romance is also shared if you go line by line also. So now I'll share some of the Vedanta and then we'll have our discussion. In Vaikunta, there is no Maya. No Maya. Another word for Maya is ego. And what is the English word for ego? Separation. In Vaikunta, no Maya, no separation. That's why I mentioned that everyone even looks like Bhagwan Narayana. Now, what made Jaya and Vijaya eligible to be Bhagwan Narayana's gatekeepers? Right? It's like if you have a very valuable possession or you want to be close to a celebrity and you see some people who get to carry that or are close to that celebrity, how come? What made them eligible? Jaya is indicative of someone who has mastered the body. And Vijaya then is someone who's mastered the mind. That's why they're close to Bhagwan Narayana, because they feel his presence inside. Makes sense. The Sanata Kumaras, those who are enlightened, they have no unlearning, they have no conditionings. And that's why they can move freely. And for us too, if we feel that we have to unlearn or that we're conditioned, it's because of that ignorance. And the more free you feel, the more free you feel with people, there's a greater presence of knowledge there. So Jaya and Vijaya stopped the Sanata Kumaras with their bodies and their minds, but this is not the first time that they have done this. Later on in Bhagavatam, Jaya and Vijaya first stop Mother Lakshmi. Mother Lakshmi is coming back to be with Bhagwan Narayana, and they stop her, saying that he's sleeping and that he should not be disturbed. She must have said he's always sleeping, correct? He's always in Yoga Nidra. Of course he can be disturbed. And finally they let her through. And she goes and tells Bhagwan Narayana that, these people that you put to protect you and I, they're arrogant. They should be changed. And Bhagwan Narayana very thoughtfully says, you may be right, you probably are right, but if I ask them to leave, if I remove them, people will think that it's a likes and dislikes matter, correct? My wife told me to do it. So he said, let them make the mistake again. Let it be more arm's length. Let it be objective, and then I'll do that. You're right. Now, when Jaya and Vijaya were not stopped, were not rebuked for what they did to Mother Lakshmi, they grew more arrogant. They grew more arrogant, and that's why they were disrespectful even to these boys look like kids. When Bhagwan Narayana comes over there and the Sanata Kumaras realize their mistake and they ask for forgiveness, Bhagwan Narayana says, you shouldn't be asking forgiveness, I should be asking for forgiveness. Because they are my servants, I am their master. Anything that the servant does is really indicative of the master. And that's a very tough message to live up to. You think about all of the people you work with, all of the people that are subordinate to you. Imagine being responsible for their actions also. And Bhagwan Narayana says, I am asking you for forgiveness. And Jaya and Vijaya ask for forgiveness too, saying we are arrogant. Please don't leave us. And Bhagwan Narayana says, you have been cursed to become asuras 3 times. The first embodiment will become Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu. The second time you will be embodied will be Ravana and Kumbhakarna. We've checked that off. And the third time you will be embodied will be Shishupala and Dantavakra. 3 times they will manifest. Bhagwan Narayana said, I will come 4 times. I will come 4 times to make sure you come back to me. And so Bhagwan Narayana comes as Bhagwan Varaha and Prahlada, or Narasimha, Bhagwan Narasimha. Then he comes as Bhagwan Rama. And then he comes as Bhagwan Krishna. So he manifests 4 times. And there's something really subtle here. Imagine how powerful Jaya and Vijaya would be. That they're the gatekeepers of God. When they become asuras, how powerful they would be. Only Bhagwan himself will be able to contain that power. So a lot of practicality there. And one last insight. I can't help but share all of these details with you. These Sanata Kumaras, the as if eldest brother, the most knowledgeable brother, his name is Sanata Kumara. They're known as the Sanata Kumaras. Sanata Kumara felt so bad that they had no place to punish someone else's servant. So he said, I'm going to come and manifest to make sure you also don't forget. Bhagwan will come, but I'll come secretly and help you out too. So Sanata Kumara came as Prahlada for Hiranyakashipu. And came as Vibhishana for Ravana and Kumbhakarna. To make sure they knew that Narayana is the master. Now, how come they didn't come the 3rd time? Because they knew they were going to be enlightened at that time. They didn't need any more reminders at that point. The main thought from today is all that is happening to us for the best. And the more we reflect on this, the more we'll appreciate this and we'll live more freely. That Diti made a mistake. Jaya Vijaya made a mistake. As if Rishi Kashyapa made a mistake. As if the Sanat Kumaras made a mistake. They all made mistakes, but all of them were cared for by Bhagwan.